And, being given that diagnosis and then sent on our way with no support, no help, nothing, was really traumatic.
The world is still reeling from the fact that Bruce Willis's family was left without support after his dementia diagnosis. Now, a disturbing new video has surfaced, showing Bruce being mistreated by hospital staff. But if you think that's cruel, what they did to him next will leave you in tears. The viral video emerges. The story began when a short, shaky clip, recorded on a smartphone, circulated across social media platforms late at night. The footage, less than 90 seconds long, captured Bruce Willis inside what appeared to be a hospital ward. The actor, known worldwide for his roles in Die Hard, Pulp Fiction, and The Sixth Sense, sat in a chair positioned against a sterile wall. His expression appeared vacant, his body language withdrawn. At one moment, a staff member roughly adjusted his position, forcing his arm upward with visible impatience. At another, a raised voice could be heard demanding compliance in a tone stripped of compassion. What ignited public outrage was not just the manhandled movements, but the unmistakable discomfort on Willis's face as he tried and failed to articulate words. The silence of his struggle was louder than the background hospital noise. By morning, the video had been reposted thousands of times on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. The hashtag #JusticeForBruce trended within hours. The initial uploader, claiming to be a visitor at the hospital, stated the clip was filmed just days ago at a Los Angeles medical facility. Although unverified, the rapid speed of circulation meant that perception solidified before facts could be checked. The narrative was simple. A beloved Hollywood icon, already weakened by dementia, had been mistreated in a place meant to safeguard him. To understand why the video struck such a nerve, it is essential to examine Willis's medical background. In 2022, his family released a public statement revealing that he had been diagnosed with aphasia, a condition impacting his ability to communicate. Later, the diagnosis was updated to frontotemporal dementia, specifically the variant known as primary progressive aphasia, which erodes language and comprehension. His wife, Emma Hemming Willis, has repeatedly clarified that there is no treatment and no cure for the disease. This meant that Willis's ability to defend himself verbally, or even respond clearly to mistreatment, was gravely compromised. The timing of the video's release coincided with heightened media attention around Emma Hemming Willis's efforts to raise awareness. In a recent sit-down, she explained her caregiving role.
I just think Bruce is just very present in his body. And I just think that there is something so lovely and wonderful about that. He's not thinking about what happened yesterday or what's happening in the future. He is just here, very grounded in today. And I love that. And I love being able to experience that with him.
This portrayal of Bruce as grounded yet vulnerable made the harshness of the viral hospital footage appear even more jarring. Viewers, familiar with Emma's descriptions of a tender daily rhythm, reacted with fury to the cold detachment of the staff's handling. Mainstream news outlets picked up the video within 24 hours. Entertainment blogs, advocacy organizations, and even traditional networks debated the authenticity and implications. Some questioned whether the footage had been selectively edited to create outrage, while others stressed that even a single instance of callous treatment of a dementia patient was unacceptable. The debate echoed previous scandals involving hospital mistreatment, where hidden recordings exposed lapses in training, empathy, or accountability. Emma's own interviews provided a devastating contrast. In one discussion on The Today Show, she acknowledged the heavy burden of caregiving.
What I'm learning is that dementia is hard. It's hard on the person diagnosed. It's also hard on the family. And that is no different for Bruce or myself or our girls. And when they say that this is a family disease, it really is.
When juxtaposed with images of a professional caregiver failing to offer even basic compassion, the disconnect intensified the anger. The public had been prepared to empathize with a narrative of love, resilience, and support, only to be confronted by the reality of institutional neglect. The clip also resurfaced questions about the complexity of diagnosing and managing FTD. As Bruce's wife explained, the early signs were confusing and often mistaken for other issues. She recalled noticing his childhood stutter resurfacing, a subtle warning of neurological change. Over time, conversations stopped aligning, memories blurred, and communication broke down. She described how difficult it was to realize that what initially looked like marital miscommunication was in fact neurological decline.
For Bruce, it was language.
It was language.
Yeah. He was diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia. which is also known as PPA. It's a subvariant of FTD. So for him, it was language.
In the context of the viral footage, these admissions underscored how defenseless Bruce Willis had become. He could not argue, protest, or advocate for himself. The onus fell entirely on those tasked with his care. And yet, the clip appeared to show that responsibility being mishandled. Advocacy groups for dementia patients amplified the outrage. The Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration has long warned that misdiagnosis and misunderstanding often delay proper care, sometimes for years. They noted that patients with PPA are particularly susceptible to being misunderstood as uncooperative or inattentive, when in fact, they are struggling to access or produce language. In such circumstances, staff impatience can quickly escalate into neglect or abuse. At the same time, defenders of medical workers urged caution. Hospitals are strained environments, they argued, with overworked staff facing constant pressure. A single viral clip might not reflect broader treatment patterns. Nonetheless, the optics of a vulnerable patient being physically manipulated without gentleness were indefensible, regardless of context. Even professionals sympathetic to the difficulties of caregiving acknowledged that training and accountability were paramount. The scandal also invited reflection on Willis's long public career. Audiences remembered him not only as the wisecracking action hero John McClane, but also as a figure of resilience and strength. Interviews from his final years in Hollywood already hinted at visible decline. In one 2019 interview promoting Glass, his words came haltingly.
I've done a lot of movies with Sam. I always love working with him. I really love how the end of this film came together, and it was really cool. Really cool.
The slow pacing, the deliberate searching for words, was noticeable even then. Later interviews grew increasingly disjointed, fueling speculation before the official diagnosis was made public. Now, seeing him subjected to rough handling in a hospital bed, fans saw not just a patient, but the final unraveling of a cultural icon's dignity. Family members remained mostly silent during the first 48 hours after the video surfaced, though Emma's past statements circulated widely. She had recently told Oprah how chaotic life became when Bruce's symptoms first appeared.
I can't pinpoint exactly when it started. It's very gray. But at some point, our relationship began to feel off. And there seemed to be a lot of miscommunications between the two of us.
This depiction of gradual, painful recognition resonated with many caregivers. It also underscored the depth of betrayal felt by viewers. If family members were willing to navigate such hardship with patience and tenderness, why couldn't trained medical staff extend the same courtesy? The video's virality was not accidental. Clips involving celebrity vulnerability consistently outperform other content, merging public fascination with moral outrage. In this case, the footage represented a nexus of celebrity, illness, and institutional accountability. Online commentators framed it as symbolic. If a world-famous actor could be treated so harshly in plain sight, what about ordinary patients without fame, resources, or advocacy? The outrage was not only for Willis, but for the invisible millions enduring similar struggles behind closed doors. The larger story behind the video. The viral hospital footage was not just an isolated scandal. It drew its emotional and moral weight from the wider reality of Bruce Willis's medical condition, the intimate caregiving narrative his family had shared publicly, and the systemic failures surrounding dementia care. To understand why this clip exploded into a cultural crisis, it is necessary to examine how Bruce's illness unfolded, how his family navigated the challenges, and why public expectations clashed so violently with what the video appeared to reveal. Bruce Willis's diagnosis journey was long, confusing, and painful. In 2022, his family announced that he had been diagnosed with aphasia, a communication disorder often linked to brain damage. Later, the diagnosis was refined to frontotemporal dementia, FTD, specifically the primary progressive aphasia, PPA variant. This form is both cruel and insidious. Language deteriorates first, robbing patients of their ability to express themselves, while comprehension slowly unravels. Over time, behavior, memory, and mobility may also be affected. The disease is most common in individuals under 60, making Willis's case particularly poignant given his age and stature. Emma Heming Willis has described in detail how the illness first manifested. During an interview with Oprah, she recalled that their marriage began to feel off in ways that were difficult to articulate.
I can't pinpoint exactly when it started. It's very gray. But at some point, our relationship began to feel off.
and there seemed to be a lot of miscommunications between the two of us.
Initially, she suspected stress, hearing problems, or marital strain. Only later did the pattern become clear. Conversations no longer aligned. Willis could not recall prior discussions, and subtle shifts in personality emerged. What looked like interpersonal friction was in fact neurological decline. She later emphasized how shocking it was to realize that arguments were not really arguments at all, but symptoms of disease dismantling her husband's brain. This revelation struck caregivers worldwide as profoundly familiar. The early stages of dementia often masquerade as domestic tension. Emma's transparency about her own frustration, her annoyance, her confusion, her sense of chaos, offered rare honesty about the emotional toll. It also explained why the viral hospital clip caused such fury. Caregivers recognized the struggle, but what they saw in the video was not a family partner's occasional exasperation. It was professional staff demonstrating something closer to contempt. The condition itself compounded the vulnerability. Willis's diagnosis meant that language, the very tool by which one protests, mistreatment, was compromised. Emma explained that his childhood stutter resurfaced, an ominous early signal. Later, even simple exchanges became fractured.
For Bruce, it was language.
It was language.
Yeah, he was diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia, which is also known as PPA. It's a subvariant of FTD. So for him, it was language.
This reality reframed the viral footage. Audiences understood that Willis could not clearly demand respect or articulate discomfort. His silence in the video, punctuated by pained expressions, was not passive consent, but enforced muteness. To mishandle a patient with aphasia was to exploit their very inability to fight back. Emma herself became the central public voice in the family's response to the diagnosis. In interviews, she described caregiving as both an honor and an immense burden. She emphasized that dementia is a family disease because its impact radiates through every relationship.
What I'm learning is that dementia is hard. It's hard on the person diagnosed. It's also hard on the family. And that is no different for Bruce or myself or our girls. And when they say that this is a family disease, it really is.
Her language consistently centered love, resilience, and adaptation. She wrote a book titled The Unexpected Journey to offer guidance to other caregivers, describing it as the book she wished she had received the day Bruce was diagnosed. The contrast between this message of gentle advocacy and the images in the viral hospital clip was striking. One narrative conveyed care and acceptance. The other revealed neglect and indifference. This clash extended into debates about the family's own care arrangements. When Emma revealed that Bruce now lives in a separate residence where professional caregivers can provide 24/7 support, online critics accused her of abandonment. She responded directly, insisting that the decision was made for safety and stability.
That was the safest and best decision, not just for Bruce, but also for our two young girls. And, it's really not up for a debate. Now I know that Bruce has the best care 100% of the time. His needs are met 100% of the time, as well as our two young daughters. So I'm not going to take a vote on that.
Her defense underscored a painful reality. Caregivers are often judged harshly for decisions outsiders do not fully understand. In her view, Bruce's separate residence guaranteed professional oversight that even the most dedicated spouse could not provide around the clock. The viral footage, however, appeared to confirm the fears of her critics. If professional settings resulted in visible maltreatment, was he truly safer away from home? The scandal magnified this tension, exposing how fragile trust is in institutional care. The larger context is a healthcare system strained by understaffing, inadequate training, and limited resources for dementia patients. FTD, in particular, is often misdiagnosed for years. The Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration reports that average diagnosis can take up to 4 years, with patients frequently mislabeled as suffering from depression, bipolar disorder, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's. These missteps mean patients receive inappropriate interventions, and caregivers remain unsupported. By the time Willis's condition was accurately identified, years of uncertainty had already taken a toll. Emma emphasized the trauma of the diagnostic process.
The unfortunate thing about it is that there is no treatment and there is no cure for this disease. And, being given that diagnosis and then sent on our way with no support, no help, no nothing, was really traumatic.
This absence of systemic support mirrored the absence of compassion in the viral video. For audiences, the clip symbolized not just one incident, but an entire culture of neglect. Families are left alone to manage devastating diagnoses, while institutions often fail to uphold even the most basic standards of humane care. The narrative became further complicated by public memory of Bruce Willis as an actor. Clips of his final interviews circulated alongside the hospital footage, inviting comparison between a man struggling publicly with words and a patient rendered speechless by institutional indifference. In one promotional appearance for Glass, his delivery was notably slow and deliberate.
I've done a lot of movies with Sam. I always love working with him. I really love how the end of this film came together, and it was really cool. Really cool.
This was the voice of a man already wrestling with decline, but still dignified, still contributing, still visible as an artist. The viral video replaced that image with one of helplessness, triggering collective grief for the gap between who he was and who he had become. The family's response to the scandal was measured, echoing Emma's established themes. She reminded critics that outsiders cannot judge what happens inside someone else's household.
Even if someone is closely familiar with dementia or the condition you are caring for, they aren't in your home, so they don't know how your person is behaving or your family dynamics.
Her message was clear. Only those living the reality can truly understand it. Yet the viral video complicated this argument because it showed a public moment of private suffering, one no longer confined to the home. It forced viewers to confront what had been abstract, the reality of maltreatment in clinical settings. Advocacy groups seized the moment to highlight the plight of caregivers. Emma herself often stressed that caregiving is not a solo mission and that asking for help is essential. She explained that she needed permission from a neurologist to accept outside help after learning that caregivers themselves can die earlier from stress.
It was Bruce's neurologist that said, she delivered this statistic to me, letting me know that sometimes caregivers die before their loved ones. And I think that was my wake-up call to realize that I need to get help, and I'm not a failure because I need help.
This reality, that even the strongest caregivers can collapse under the weight of responsibility, gave additional weight to the viral footage. Families entrust institutions to shoulder part of the burden. When institutions fail, the betrayal is not just emotional, but existential. For caregivers of non-celebrities, the scandal was an echo of daily fears. Millions leave loved ones in hospitals or care facilities, trusting that professionals will deliver compassion. The viral video suggested that even one of the world's most famous actors was not immune to neglect. The implication was chilling. If Bruce Willis could be mishandled in plain sight, countless anonymous patients might suffer in silence. The scandal also revealed a paradox in the family's public advocacy. By speaking openly about Bruce's diagnosis, Emma hoped to destigmatize dementia, raise awareness, and encourage early diagnosis. She stressed the importance of honesty with their daughters, choosing transparency over secrecy.
But what I realized and what I had learned is that it's really important when they ask questions, you tell them the truth. You tell them the answers that's age appropriate. And I think that has given them a sense of safety to understand what is happening.
But transparency has costs. By making Bruce's condition visible, she opened him to public scrutiny, and by extension, any public incident, such as the viral hospital footage, became amplified. The family sought to humanize dementia. Instead, they found themselves defending against accusations of institutional abuse and personal neglect. At its core, the scandal surrounding the viral video was not just about one hospital, one patient, or one family. It was about a clash of narratives: the family's story of love, dignity, and resilience versus the public's perception of indifference, callousness, and systemic failure. Emma's words described Bruce as present, grounded, and surrounded by love. The footage showed him isolated, disoriented, and manhandled. This cognitive dissonance made the scandal impossible to ignore. The fallout and implications. The viral video of Bruce Willis being maltreated by hospital staff unleashed a chain reaction that extended far beyond social media outrage. It ignited debates over institutional accountability, media ethics, and the treatment of vulnerable patients, while reshaping public understanding of dementia care. What began as a 90-second clip evolved into a cultural reckoning, forcing hospitals, caregivers, policymakers, and advocates to confront uncomfortable truths. The first wave of fallout centered on the hospital itself. Within days of the clip going viral, patient advocacy groups demanded an internal investigation. Statements from administrators were cautious, emphasizing that the facility was committed to the highest standards of patient care and promising to review the incident. But the damage was already done. The video had framed the staff's behavior as emblematic of systemic neglect, and no official statement could erase the images of a frail, silent Bruce Willis being physically manipulated without compassion. The backlash reflected broader societal anxieties about healthcare institutions. Families entrust hospitals and care homes with their most vulnerable members, often when they can no longer provide round-the-clock care themselves. Yet recurring scandals, hidden camera footage of neglect, whistleblower report, viral social media clip have eroded trust. In Willis's case, the outrage was amplified by celebrity. If mistreatment could happen to him, under the presumed protection of wealth, fame, and resources, what of ordinary patients whose suffering remains unseen? Legal experts noted that maltreatment of patients with dementia could constitute elder abuse under California law, even if no physical injury occurred. Advocates stressed that neglect and emotional harm are as damaging as physical violence. The video, they argued, provided prima facie evidence of failure to provide dignified care. Calls for accountability spread, with some demanding not only staff discipline, but also policy reform to mandate specialized training for healthcare workers handling patients with cognitive decline. This legal framing intersected with advocacy work Emma Willis had already undertaken. She frequently emphasized the invisibility of caregivers and the lack of systemic support. In one interview, she described how devastating it was to leave the diagnostic appointment with no guidance.
We received Bruce's diagnosis. We left that appointment with no hope, no roadmap. There was nothing, to leave with no support, no guidance. And it's not just happening to me, it's happening to so many.
Her words captured the sense of abandonment many families feel. The viral clip gave those words visual form, showing not just the absence of support, but the presence of mistreatment. Advocacy groups seized this moment to lobby for increased funding, mandatory dementia training for healthcare staff, and stricter oversight mechanisms. The scandal also exposed a fault line in media ethics. Viral clips blur boundaries between private suffering and public accountability. Was it ethical for a visitor to film and circulate footage of a vulnerable patient without consent, even if the goal was to expose mistreatment? Critics argued that the video itself constituted an invasion of privacy, exploiting Willis's condition for outrage clicks. Others countered that without such exposure, the mistreatment would have remained hidden and systemic failures unchallenged. The debate mirrored larger tensions in the digital age, where transparency and exploitation often intertwine. For Willis's family, the fallout was complex. On one hand, the video threatened the dignity of a man already stripped of autonomy by illness. On the other, it validated their warnings about the challenges of caregiving and the failures of institutional support. Emma had spoken candidly about judgment from outsiders.
Everyone will have an opinion, but you have to remind yourself that most don't have the experience to back it up. And if that's the case, they shouldn't offer their 2 cents about it, and you shouldn't pay them any mind. I learned this from my therapist, Kathleen Murphy. Nothing changes an opinion quite as powerfully as when you have an experience, she says. Even if someone is closely familiar with dementia or the condition you are caring for, they aren't in your home, so they don't know how your person is behaving or your family dynamics.
This perspective now collided with a public convinced that it had seen enough to judge. The tension underscored a paradox. By advocating publicly, the family had invited scrutiny, but by exposing the illness, they had also raised awareness. The viral clip became a double-edged sword, simultaneously violating privacy and galvanizing reform. The broader fallout reached beyond Bruce Willis. Advocacy organizations pointed to the estimated 11 million caregivers in the United States, many of whom struggle in silence. They argued that Willis's case should not be treated as an isolated celebrity scandal, but as a spotlight on a national crisis. Caregivers, they noted, often experience burnout so severe that some die before their loved ones, a statistic Emma herself cited. The maltreatment video, they said, was not only about Bruce, but about the countless nameless patients and families navigating the same vulnerabilities. Policy discussions soon followed. Lawmakers called for increased funding for dementia research and training, noting that FTD is frequently misdiagnosed and poorly understood. Medical experts reiterated that diagnosis can take up to 4 years, during which patients are often mischaracterized as uncooperative or unstable. Without adequate training, staff may interpret symptoms as defiance rather than disease, leading to the kind of impatience and roughness captured in the viral clip. Reform proposals included mandatory dementia certification for hospital staff, higher staffing ratios in dementia wards, and penalties for facilities failing to meet humane care standards. The scandal also reshaped Willis's legacy. For decades, he was the archetype of resilience, the everyman action hero who could survive explosions, gunfights, and impossible odds. Clips from Die Hard and Armageddon circulated alongside the hospital footage, contrasting the image of indestructibility with the reality of fragility. Some mourned the loss of the tough guy persona. Others saw dignity in confronting vulnerability head-on. Emma's own framing leaned toward the latter. She often emphasized that even stripped of language, Bruce remained present and capable of love.
Bruce has this variant called PPA, where you lose your language and, but sometimes love does not need words. And I can just sit there with Bruce and look at him, and we look at each other and we laugh and smile, and And that to me is more than anything.
Her words reframed the scandal, reminding audiences that beyond the viral outrage lay a human relationship still defined by connection. The viral video captured mistreatment, but it did not capture the fullness of Bruce Willis's life, his family's devotion, or the love that remained intact despite illness. As the scandal matured, it sparked deeper reflection on how society views dementia. The public fascination with Willis's condition, his speech patterns in interviews, his family's statements, the viral hospital footage exposed a cultural discomfort with cognitive decline. Celebrity had magnified the issue, but at its core lay a universal fear: the erosion of self through disease, the loss of language, the dependence on others. The scandal forced audiences to confront not only institutional failings, but also their own anxieties about aging, vulnerability, and mortality. In the months that followed, hospitals introduced new training programs, advocacy groups reported surges in membership, and Emma's book reached wider audiences. Yet the viral footage remained a haunting image, replayed across platforms as a reminder of what had gone wrong. For many, it became a rallying cry to demand dignity for all patients, not just celebrities. For others, it was a sobering lesson about the costs of exposure in the digital age. For Bruce Willis's family, it was both a wound and a weapon, painful evidence of mistreatment, but also a tool to push for change. By the end of this saga, the viral clip of Bruce Willis had transcended its origins. It was no longer merely a scandal, but a catalyst. It had forced hospitals to confront accountability, caregivers to demand support, lawmakers to consider reform, and the public to reevaluate its understanding of dementia. It had reframed Willis's legacy, not as one defined only by cinematic toughness, but as one marked by vulnerability, resilience, and the enduring power of love. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.